battlefield. So, even if Kai tried to sneak into a blind spot, Wimberg would totally spot him. This was the ultimate counter to Kai's amazing assassination moves. Good thing Kai wasn't alone in this fight. He had Mir there to help him out. Raising her scepter, Mir started getting another one of her spells ready. Wimberg was about to strike back when he saw what the elf girl was doing. His wind surge made him practically omnipresent by perfectly controlling wind flow. But if Mir messed with that flow, his wind surge would totally break down. Wimberg couldn't shake the feeling that this elf girl somehow knew all the weak spots in his fighting style. Kai figured it out. Mir had probably spent her whole life planning her revenge, which is why she knew exactly how to counter the Heavenly King. With the wind surge messed up, Kai instantly moved, trying to hide himself and get closer. Wimberg just thought it was super arrogant that this human was trying such basic tricks on him. Kai managed to reach him in the air, but Wimberg just flew even higher. He looked down at Kai, mocking him for even trying to reach him when Wimberg totally owned the skies. This just made things way harder. That flight ability was exactly like Narumi's. Kai's thoughts got cut off as Mir yelled at him to jump again. Trusting his teammate, he did it. This time, he got a huge boost of wind magic, making his jump super powerful and giving him the ability to fly. Wimberg totally freaked out. Kai used his foresight along with weak point detection, aiming for a perfect one-shot kill. Instantly, he saw 1 second into the future, Wimberg dodging sideways, and a weak spot popping up right in his throat. But just a split second later, the path to that weak point vanished. Kai had never seen anything like it. One moment he had the kill shot, and the next, it was completely gone. Wimberg wasn't just standing there. He completely switched up his fighting style as he pulled out his sword. It was a thin, straight blade, glowing green and pulsing with wind power. He was seriously annoyed that some random intruder had forced him to draw his weapon at all. So, Kai found himself stuck in the air with a demon lord who was clearly out to kill him. Then came a storm of sword strikes, and without his foresight, those slashes would have shredded him. Even with his powerful skill, the attacks were just too fast to handle. Turns out, Wimberg was actually Hector's sword instructor. Hector, the demon Kai took down back in the mountains. But while Wimberg was busy trying to overpower Kai, he completely forgot about Mir. That mistake almost cost him big time. A huge boulder came crashing down, aiming to kill him. Kai used that opening to pull back and figure out their next move. Even though the odds were stacked against them, the two were determined to take down one of the 4 heavenly demon kings today. That giant boulder? Even Wimberg's demonic wind darts probably couldn't have stopped it. Mir definitely had more tricks up her sleeve. Kai was starting to see just how much anger she was holding on to, and Wimberg noticed it too. Wimberg quickly figured out that these intruders must have been Hector's killers. Mir drove that point home by asking Wimberg how it felt to lose someone he cared about. The demon just laughed menacingly, then recognized Mir as the sole survivor from a village he had destroyed. Mir had spent a decade practicing her spells non-stop, all to get justice for that attack. Wimberg started taunting her, reminiscing about that day and describing it in gross detail. Mir never thought this monster would even remember what happened to her hometown, but the demon loved hearing the elves scream back then. He loved how they cared more about others than themselves, which meant he got to watch them beg for mercy. Their despairing faces were so beautiful to him, it practically thrilled him. Furious, the young elf snapped and lunged forward. She would have charged right in if Kai hadn't stopped her, telling her never to fall for such obvious traps. Kai told her he was counting on her spells, so she absolutely had to stay calm and focused during the fight. Mir snapped back to reality, remembering this was a team effort. Kai still needed more time to figure things out. But Kai was the kind of guy who'd do anything to win, so it was just a matter of time. Wimberg was a super powerful enemy, covering both close and long-range attacks that could hit hard. Wimberg also realized this duo was a difficult pair to deal with. Kai, the man, could even trade blows with him, despite being human. The only explanation Wimberg could think of was that this mystery guy had to be one of the hero candidates. Kai didn't deny it. Wimberg, the Heavenly King, always tracked the most powerful fighters from the enemy nation, but he had never even heard of Kai, which made Kai a total unknown. After thinking it over, Wimberg decided to play it safe. He planned to drag out the battle, letting his superior strength slowly crush his foe. Meanwhile, Kai's foresight skill was running out, with only 3 minutes remaining. If they couldn't finish the fight quickly, their odds of winning would practically hit rock bottom. That's when Mir suddenly spoke up, urging Kai to hear her plan. Kai stayed sharp, listening intently as Mir quickly whispered her strategy to him. He finally agreed to it, but not without a cheeky warning. "Don't drag me down," he told her, which was pretty ironic since it was her plan anyway. Wimberg simply watched them plot, amused and totally sure he had already won. But Kai suddenly got a fresh burst of energy, locking onto his target like a hungry predator. Wimberg just grinned, arrogantly welcoming Kai with open arms. The first step of their plan was simple. use wind magic to launch Kai into the air. While he got ready for the next clash, Mir would stay on the ground. She called on Norm, the earth spirit, to summon a bunch of boulders she could control. Mir then aimed her spell at the demon, sending the rocks flying straight into the air. Wimberg, a master of wind, effortlessly blew the incoming attack away. The simple boulders were sent soaring into the stratosphere, nowhere near hitting him. But that brief moment Wimberg focused elsewhere was all the opening Kai needed. Too bad the demon's reaction time was lightning fast. The first part might have flopped, but Mir wasn't giving up yet. She quickly took control of the blown-away boulders again. They circled back, ready to strike Wimberg from behind. Wimberg could easily dodge or just use a wind wall to block, so this shouldn't have been a problem. But Mir had already guessed he'd try to block with magic, so she called Sylph again, using her own wind power to mess up Wimberg's defense. The boulders then smashed right through the incomplete wind wall, heading straight for Wimberg. The magic attack itself wasn't designed to deal big damage. Its real goal was to create an opening in Wimberg's defenses. With his foresight and weak point detection, Kai instantly took advantage of the distraction. Wimberg barely managed to raise his sword to block the incoming blade, but Kai's incredible skill with swords was impossible to underestimate. In one smooth move, blood splattered across Neutrat City. Wimberg had miscalculated completely. Kai wasn't going for a fatal blow to his heart. Instead, Kai aimed for Wimberg's sword hand. With the perfect plan, Kai now had Wimberg's own blade. After snatching the dangerous weapon, Kai instantly pulled back, out of the demon's reach. Losing his sword stunned Wimberg, making him miss the attack coming from behind. Boulders slammed into him from all sides with massive force, but the powerful Heavenly King just stood there, completely fine, not even a scratch. The two of them might have broken his guard, but Wimberg was just too tough to take down. Mir was shocked. She thought their amazing combo attack would finally get her revenge. Kai, though, stayed totally focused on taking down his enemy fast. He remembered Mir's whispered advice. Wind demonic arts are weak against earth. She could also mess with Wimberg's wind powers using her own. To beat a demon like Wimberg, they needed a solid plan they could actually pull off. But Kai tweaked the plan. Now, it was all about creating openings for him to strike, which he knew would work better. At least they had Wimberg's weapon. Mir was still confused, though. Wimberg was famous for his top-tier wind magic, so losing a close combat weapon shouldn't really bother him. Wimberg knew this too, and Kai didn't even look like a swordsman to begin with. Wimberg licked his wound and it healed up super fast. He then shot more wind missiles at Kai, forcing the assassin to use the stolen sword to block them. Kai used this moment to get back into range, swinging the glowing blade. To Wimberg's shock and annoyance, he suddenly couldn't keep up with Kai's attacks. Every swing of the blade pushed Wimberg back further and further. Wimberg wasn't just any swordsman, he was amazing. Being pushed around by a human like this was just crazy. Mir saw her chance and unleashed a wind spell, adding to the mayhem. A simple gust of wind hit Wimberg's legs, instantly knocking him off balance. As the demon fell, he watched Kai perfectly follow his path downwards. Wimberg looked into the young man's crimson eyes, seeing his own sword raised high above. Refusing to lose, Wimberg focused all his power into his middle horn. It grew hard, thick, and veiny. Wind power gathered at its tip, forming a deadly wind blade aimed right at Kai. But Wimberg was just a second too slow. With a small adjustment and perfect teamwork, the fight was already over. The heavenly demon's head flew off, landing next to his lifeless body. Kai, meanwhile, landed like a superhero nearby. The moment he touched down, Kai ran out of mana and lost his foresight. Wimberg was still barely alive. Even with his head detached, he never expected to lose like this. Before finally dying, he asked Kai how he could move so weirdly. Kai explained he could copy skills thanks to his copycat ability. He literally copied Wimberg's entire fighting style just by watching him. Kai knew nothing about swords, but he wasn't complaining about the new skill. Wimberg figured Kai must be blessed by the god of creation. This power alone made him humanity's trump card. Kai twisted the knife even more. He told Wimberg he got copycat after killing his disciple, Hector. With his final breath, Wimberg called his disciple an idiot for letting an enemy live and get stronger. Kai sat among the battlefield rubble, thinking about their next move. He now knew just how powerful one of the four heavenly kings truly was. There were 3 more demons just as strong, and the Demon King, way more powerful. Plus, the king had his own bloodline, like Isabel, working for him. Kai admitted he stood no chance against the final boss right now, and let out a sigh. He looked up and saw Meyer approaching Wimberg's dead body, her face expressionless. She asked Kai if it was done, and he said yes. Kai then asked her, curious, how it felt to finally get her revenge after all these years of planning. Meyer confessed she felt nothing. She'd risked everything for this moment, yet felt no satisfaction. Only a small sense of relief, like a heavy weight lifted. Wimberg was gone, but her parents and the villagers would never return. She felt free from her past. Kai admitted he was glad Meyer was with him. Without her perfectly timed help, he never would have beaten Wimberg. Meyer felt the same way. She'd trained for 10 years for this fight, but couldn't have done it without Kai's power. She was truly thankful for him. Even though it was brutal revenge, he still helped her fulfill her life's goal. For Kai, their paths just happened to cross at the right moment. His help wasn't a big deal to him. Meyer was used to Kai's chill attitude, but she knew sticking with him was the right choice. If she'd stayed with the sage, she couldn't have controlled herself. She would have just rushed in and died for nothing. Her master probably knew that all along. With her mission done, Kai asked Meyer what she would do next. She hadn't really thought that far ahead, feeling a bit lost. Kai suggested she could take her time finding a new goal, since elves live for ages. Meyer corrected him. She was only half elf, so her lifespan wasn't that long. For now, she just wanted to stick with Kai. He asked if she was sure, reminding her his goal was to kill the Demon King. Meyer was totally on board with this plan too. She figured if the Demon King was gone, fewer people would have to go through what she did. Plus, she was ready to stick with Kai no matter what, even if he told her to get lost. This time, Kai didn't push her away. Instead, he just explained their next move. Find as many clues as possible before enemy reinforcements showed up. Meyer practically glowed with happiness, seeing that Kai was okay with her joining. So, the pair snuck out of Neutrat City, having just taken down one of the 4 heavenly demon kings. High above, a spatial rift popped open, and there stood the witch Isabel. With a bored look, the princess watched them disappear into the shadows. Isabel had to admit, Kai and Meyer did way better than she expected. She thought they might be useful if they just escaped, but they actually killed Wimberg. Her usually flat expression finally broke into a smile. With these two, her plans would be much smoother. After the Neutrat City fight, Kai and Meyer made for the wilderness, trying to avoid any demon patrols. They eventually made it back to Albana's home, high up in the tough mountains. The duo filled the sage in on everything. She was just relieved they both returned safely. However, killing a heavenly demon so quickly completely blew her mind. When Meyer started to speak up about it, the sage cut her off. Albana already knew what her student wanted to say. She could sense Meyer's desire to keep following Kai, so she gave her blessing. The sage wished her well, not just as a companion, but maybe even something more. Once that was sorted, Albana asked Kai if he'd heard about the front lines. Curious, he pressed the sage for details. Turns out, Kai's classmates, the hero candidates, got absolutely crushed. Hearing Meidu and the others lost, Kai wondered who they faced. Albana explained reports showed they went up against Stone Gaia, the Demon King Army's top executive and Heavenly King of Earth. Since he shared the same title as Wimberg, he had to be insanely strong too. Kai finally asked the big question. Were there any casualties? Luckily, everyone made it out alive. Still, after such a loss, their morale was at rock bottom. For now, Kai decided to just watch how things played out. With his new goal of killing the Demon King, he figured he could use his classmates to slowly chip away at the army's power. He might even be able to use the whole class to take on the remaining Heavenly Kings. Meyer then asked if the other hero candidates were as strong as Kai. Honestly, Kai wasn't sure. They had raw power, but if they couldn't use it properly, that strength didn't mean a thing. Let's check in on the hero candidates back at Fort Truss. They bunked down for the night, but the fort's medical ward was packed. Soldiers were everywhere, all hurt from the failed attack. Even the strong hero candidates ended up pretty banged up. Meidu had injuries all over, and Hano was busy healing him. He gave her a small smile, telling her not to push it too hard. Her healing skill wasn't endless after all. Hano knew it was risky to heal everyone, but it was the only way she felt useful. So, Meidu just sat, letting the healing light mend his wounds. Just hours before, their attack on Stone Gaia completely fell apart. If Heinrich hadn't shown up, they would have been wiped out on the spot. Meidu saw how hurt everyone was, not just their bodies, but their minds too. Rina just stared at the ground, her eyes blank. Arashi hid his face, ashamed he couldn't do more. Meidu clenched his fist, fueled by pure frustration. He saw their defeat by Stone Gaia as his own fault. Meidu was convinced their loss came down to his bad leadership. If he had just beaten the Heavenly King alone, none of this mess would have happened. Over at Fort Arliss, the demons were still holding strong. The place looked impossible to breach. Up on a watchtower, the commander, Heavenly King of Earth, Stone Gaia, was just chilling, enjoying the breeze. Meanwhile, Kai was secretly spying on the fort from a distance, making sure not to get caught. Kai's eyes were seriously busted good. He could easily spot a still target from hundreds of feet away. Even Meyer, who grew up with magic, was amazed by his incredible sight. Kai couldn't help it though. Every time his appraisal skill leveled up, it just kept gaining new powers. The elf girl was even starting to get suspicious about how convenient his skills seemed. Safe back at their base camp, Kai managed to peek at Stone Gaia's wild stats. The Heavenly King was a total beast in demonic earth arts, a defensive tank who also knew a thing or two about swords. Kai then fired up his upgraded appraisal, and bam! He got a super detailed breakdown of the enemy's powers. At level 4, his appraisal went way deeper, showing him all of Stone Gaia's skills, which was a huge bonus. But the main thing he wanted to try was weak point detection. He aimed it at the super tough heavenly demon, but nothing popped up. That just meant Kai wasn't strong enough yet to find any openings from that far away. Man, if every enemy had a weak point, things would be so much simpler. All in all, Kai had a super detailed scouting report on Stone Gaia, right down to the demon's specific skills. And with Mir's magic know-how, she could summon water spirits. That's key, because Earth attribute users are naturally weak against water, just like in Pokemon battles. But remember, type advantage isn't everything. Every fight also depends on how skilled the user is. Stone Gaia might know tons of Earth demonic arts, but they probably only mastered a couple of them. Knowing Stone Gaia's specialty would let Mir exploit a weak spot. Since they were already in the area, checking out another heavenly demon's lair seemed like a smart move. Back at Fort Truss, the hero candidates were still reeling from their heavy loss. Midu was hit the hardest by it all. He couldn't help but wonder if Kai could have turned things around. But Midu refused to rely on anyone other than himself. For him, relying on others meant running away from the hard work. Just as he was about to shout his resolve into the air, his classmates arrived. They knew exactly how hard Midu could be on himself. Rina, especially, knew their class rep always tried to carry every burden alone. Narumi quickly added that Midu should wipe that depressed look off his face, reminding him they hadn't hit the game over screen yet. One by one, his classmates assured him this wasn't a battle he had to fight alone. He asked them if they still trusted him to lead the group, but that was a silly question. They all agreed they couldn't ask for a better leader. Narumi then voiced what everyone was thinking. Midu really needed to try relying on others more. Seeing and hearing how his friends responded to their loss, Midu finally smiled after a long time. Narumi also made sure to say that everyone had gotten a lot stronger, so Midu could finally take a break from hard carrying the whole group. Just as the class finished their deep discussion, their reunion became complete when another group arrived. Arashi and his injured crew had gotten out of their beds just to show their resolve. The delinquent boss instantly slammed Midu for having such a pathetic look. They should be planning a second round against that stone bastard, he declared. Everyone was totally surprised that Arashi actually came to meet with the whole class. He clicked his tongue, clearly annoyed that they couldn't finish the job in one go. So now, he was ready to listen to Midu's orders to make sure they got the win against Stone Gaia. The other classmates were just thrilled to see Arashi finally unite with the rest of them. With a newfound fire burning in his heart, Midu declared they would go for another round against the demon who had totally trashed them. Arashi definitely liked this more determined version of Midu. While everyone else was happily laughing and hyped up together, Kenzaki stayed quiet, watching from afar. Even though she was glad her classmates had finally united, she still worried because they had no real plan to defeat Stone Gaia. Her worries instantly vanished the moment she heard Kai's voice calling her name. She looked around and saw Kai hanging out by the stairs. He warned her not to make any loud noise, saying he didn't want to be noticed. Kenzaki quickly obeyed, covering her mouth to stop herself from making excited sounds. Kai had come to confirm everything that went down in the battle against the Heavenly King of Earth. He pressed Kenzaki for all the details about the demonic art Stone Gaia had used. After Kenzaki gave him a super detailed report, Kai finally understood Stone Gaia's fighting style, especially how he controlled golems. Kai was certain the demon's fighting style relied heavily on that specific type of demonic art, just as Mayer had predicted. However, when Kai mentioned another woman's name, Kenzaki felt her blood pressure instantly spike. Kai refused to elaborate further, simply thanking her for the information. Kenzaki nervously asked if he would be helping the class this time. Kai considered it, but seeing everyone's resolve, he didn't want to mess with their growing team chemistry. So Kai decided to stick to his usual plan, working in the shadows and handling the tough stuff behind the scenes. A few days after the human attack, Fort Arliss enjoyed a brief period of peace. Meanwhile, on the outskirts, the summoned hero candidates secretly gathered, preparing for a second assault. They also welcomed back Yumi, a classmate who had quit after all the traumatic events. Yumi used to be part of Rina's group, and Rina was overjoyed to have her return. With that, Kinoshita Yumi officially joined the upcoming Fort Arliss expedition. Some classmates asked her why she suddenly decided to rejoin the combatant party after leaving. Yumi explained that she heard everyone was having trouble and wanted to do something for the class. They jokingly called her a hero for her answer. But deep down, Yumi actually had second thoughts about this whole thing. Just 5 days earlier, she had been working non-stop as a waitress at a local inn, completely exhausted every single day since starting the job. Then, she walked into her room. Kai was just standing there, greeting her as if showing up unannounced in someone's private space was totally normal. Maybe it was the fatigue, but Kinoshita politely greeted him back at first. Then it hit her. There was an edgy teen in her room. That's when Kinoshita finally panicked. It took her some time, but Yumi eventually calmed down. She asked Kai why he was there. Kai explained how much Midu and the rest of the class were struggling on the front lines. He told her they desperately needed Kinoshita's skill, the divine protection of water manipulation, to overcome their current situation. That was also why he had snuck into her room. Even though Kinoshita had quit the combatant party, Kai saw something in her. He saw the qualities needed to return as a proper fighter, believing she secretly wanted to rejoin her friends. Leonora was the one who had scared her off, but that was no longer an issue. Kai's bullets had taken care of that witch. With Leonora gone, Kinoshita had no reason to hold back anymore. Time had also healed the wounds in her heart. Turns out, Kinoshita was also a terrible waitress, constantly breaking plates. The truth was, she had been itching to help Nagase and the others. She looked into Kai's eyes and knew there was no point in denying it. She was pretty surprised that a classmate was paying this much attention to her. Kai quickly set things straight, saying he was just looking for a usable pawn. Kinoshita chose to ignore that last part. Instead, she asked how he could possibly join the combatant party, since he was technically a wanted criminal. Kai couldn't officially join the Holy Kingdom's army with his criminal record, but being the group's shadow didn't need a clean slate. Just like that, Kai had another piece ready on his board. Kinoshita was hyped, ready to prove her power could make a difference. Kanzaki, still her usual quiet self, listened in on everything. She'd already heard Kai's full game plan earlier, but Kanzaki felt a bit shaky, wondering if Kinoshita's water power would really be enough to break through the enemy's defenses. Kai wasn't actually fighting, so it was up to the class to come up with their own plan. His only advice? Adapt to whatever happens. Before he left, Kai also sent a message to Midu. He challenged Midu to show him how much everyone had grown while he was away. Back on the edge of Fort Arliss, Midu approached Kanzaki to confirm their game plan one last time. They really couldn't afford to get beaten again. So, the group carefully talked through their ideas, refining their strategy. From a distance, Mir and Kai watched and listened. She wondered if these kids could pull it off, knowing Kai had an even better plan in his head. He was just taking a back seat today because people don't grow if they're always told what to do. With the Demon King as the final goal, his classmates needed to step up big time. They had the power, but they were terrible at using their gifts. For this war, Kai would only give minimal help, throwing out hints now and then. Still, what matters in battle is making your own decisions. Meanwhile, the demon soldiers of Fort Arliss were already set up, manning their defenses. Thousands of human soldiers, flying the flag of the Holy Kingdom, stood at the front gate. Captain Amelia took charge as the commander for this second attack. At her command, the kingdom's soldiers bravely pushed into the demon-held base. The demons on the front lines just laughed, thinking these humans hadn't learned anything from their last defeat. Amelia rallied her troops to clear a path for the hero candidates so they could do their job right. As for the demons, their orders were simple: kill all invaders. The war quickly turned into total chaos, but the hero candidates steadily pushed forward in the middle of it. Midu could sense their ultimate enemy in the fort's tower. The Heavenly King, Stone Gaia, wasn't one to hide during an attack, but he loved to flash his golden grills, taunting enemies from afar. Midu could practically feel the demon inviting them into his territory again, and he didn't want to be disappointed twice. After fighting through countless demon foot soldiers, the hero candidates finally reached the gate and blew it up right away. Arashi's explosion skill was super useful for locked doors like this one. Inside, the party found the golem Stone Gaia had made earlier. Midu declared their plan officially started, with a new sense of importance. Hidden from everyone below, two figures watched the fight from a crack in the ceiling. It was Kai and Mare, keeping an eye on things. Kai was ready to see how far these kids had come since he left. The hero candidates quickly got into formation, with Midu and Arashi leading the charge. In front of them stood tough stone golems. Midu raised his shining blade, officially kicking off their second try at the Stone Gaia raid. Rina worried this fight might be too much for Yumi, who had just rejoined the combat team. Yumi looked tense, but she pushed through. Mid-rush, she used her divine power, sending tons of water onto the field. With all that water, the golems were in trouble. Stone Gaia watched as a huge wave swept over his army. The battlefield was now in their favor, and Arashi plunged into the action, fists first. Arashi's punches literally exploded, perfect for those big, unmoving enemies. Midu's sword wasn't ideal, but he made up for it. His raw strength, technique, and talent were undeniable. All the other hero candidates also pulled their weight. They had clearly sharpened their blessings quite a bit. They might look like side characters, but these extras knew how to take down golems. That's all that really mattered in this fight. After that first clash, every single golem was dunked into the shallow pool on the ground. Stone Gaia instantly pumped energy into his army, trying to make them rebuild, but the golem's wet parts made reconstruction impossible. This meant the hero candidate's plan was totally working. Stone Gaia didn't stress about it much, though. He was just annoyed that these humans had brought a water user into the mix. So, he grabbed his weapons and called in his remaining cannon fodder puppets. Up on the ceiling, Mare and Kai were watching closely. Mare was actually the one who came up with this whole plan. Mare had figured out that the rock joints were weak to water damage, making the golems harder to control. Seeing things turn their way, Midu yelled for his classmates to hit even harder. They had the momentum now. Yumi was feeling super confident and launched the next round of attacks first. Yumi summoned a massive wave that washed the remaining golems away. Narumi and the others quickly moved into their effective range. Up close, the golems were huge, towering over them, but the team didn't care. They knew the winning formula now. Stone Gaia actually smiled. He praised their plan to clear out his minions first, and whoever came up with such a smart strategy. He then touched the ground, and multiple magic circles popped up around him. The Heavenly King unleashed sharp boulders from those circles. He saw his golems as just disposable minions to weed out weaker enemies. Now, Stone Gaia was ready to show them the real power of the earth. He sent the boulders flying at the hero candidates, who froze in shock. Luckily, some of them could fight back. Hashimoto quickly used her telekinetic powers, stopping the boulders from wiping out their team. Stone Gaia clearly didn't expect his control over the boulders to be overridden. Then Kanzaki stepped in, using her domination skill to stop the Heavenly Demon King from making another move. A restraint ability like that was a total game changer. With Stone Gaia held still, Arashi charged in, ready to hit him with an explosive attack, but a hastily built mud wall blocked him. The mud absorbed his explosion, stopping it from reaching its target. After the explosion cleared, it was just Arashi and Stone Gaia facing off. Stone Gaia flashed a smug smile, bragging that this much power wouldn't be enough to break his defense. Right then, Midu used his instant movement. He instantly appeared at Stone Gaia's side, setting up a lethal sneak attack. His sword gleamed, lighting up the whole room. Stone Gaia quickly drew his own blade and easily blocked the attack, even while still under Kanzaki's domination. Hashimoto decided to jump back in, sending those telekinetically charged boulders right back at Stone Gaia. Narumi also took his chance, adding his wind manipulation to the attack. He created multiple wind lances, a huge upgrade from the single one he used before. Stone Gaia was now dealing with another explosion threat from the front, a skilled swordsman on his flank, and projectiles flying in from everywhere. Yet he was still super confident he would win. He then summoned a huge stone wall to push back the close-range fighters, making a big gap. Yumi refused to let this opportunity slip away, not when they were so close. So she unleashed another water attack. This water attack packed enough pressure and energy to shatter the stone wall completely. Stone Gaia's impenetrable defense turned into nothing but a wet mess on the ground. It turned out his material loses its hardness when wet. Mine, however, works completely differently. With a clear shot at Stone Gaia, Midu got ready for another round of attacks. Having Arashi by his side made this a sure way to deal maximum damage. The combined force of explosions and blades slammed into Stone Gaia, almost sending him to the Shadow Realm right there. But the old demon was famous for his defense for a reason. Even with coordinated attacks hitting him from every angle, he was sure he could endure. Gaia's defenses were totally breaking down. He had no choice but to go all out. So the Heavenly King decided to dump all his massive defensive power into one huge attack. As Gaia's power made the ground shake, the hero candidates almost fell. But at that exact moment, Kai's sharp eyes spotted a major weak point. He threw a knife straight at the demon's forehead, piercing through its skull. And just like that, another heavenly demon was gone. Talk about a classic kill steal. Stone Gaia fought to stay alive, but he couldn't. His huge body crashed down right in front of the stunned hero candidates. Seeing the giant boss finally fall, the whole class went wild with celebration. They cheered loudly for Midu and Arashi, thinking these two heavy hitters had secured their victory. But both guys knew better. This wasn't their doing. They both realized someone else had jumped in at the last second. Arashi checked the demon's body and found a throwing knife covered in blood. He picked it up and immediately knew who was responsible. Arashi knew what had happened, and it seriously annoyed him. Midu looked up and found the source of the knife, a small crack in the ceiling. He was now certain Kai made the final move. Arashi still couldn't stand that sneaky dude. Then Narumi came over to the supposed MVPs, flashing a big, toothy grin. Midu gave an awkward smile and agreed they'd won, but he knew he wasn't the true hero here. Their original plan, relying on Yumi's water spells, was supposed to work perfectly. Being so close to Stone Gaia at the very end, Midu felt the demon unleash an insane amount of mana. He realized their method was like child's play against that power. That's why Kai had to step in during such a critical moment. Hashimoto noticed Midu's glum face, even after their victory. She told him to join the others in celebrating. Midu wanted to tell her everything, but she didn't give him a chance. What truly mattered was that one of the 4 heavenly kings had fallen. No matter what, that was a huge achievement worth celebrating. Midu was swept into the cheering crowd of his classmates. He saw their happy faces and triumphant grins, and it made him appreciate the win. A dub is a dub, no matter how you get it. But the proud Arashi just couldn't smile and celebrate, knowing he didn't earn the credit. His group, totally clueless, just kept cheering for their boy. Arashi quickly told his friends to be quiet. He made it clear that he wasn't the one who defeated the Demon King. One of Arashi's buddies, who was close to the action, actually saw what happened, but he just